GEM International is a new diamond explorer in the richest diamond-producing country in Africa, located next to the fourth largest producing diamond mine in the world. International Spotlight is on an 1109-carat diamond, recently discovered in Africa by a fellow Canadian junior, with a proven operator and finance team. GEM International trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol GI. Visit us at gemdiamondmining.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Rafe Mair, former BC Cabinet Minister and Canada's longest-running #1 radio talk show host and perhaps the most prominent political commentator in Lions Bay, BC. We haven't heard of anybody bigger or better, but there could be, right?
Whoa, careful there. No, I'm getting humble in my old age. We've got a little kid down the block that talks a lot about his school politics. He gets a better crowd than I do.
Rafe, I'm hoping that you're having a great New Year to start it off.
Well, it's it's getting a little bit better. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good, and had my 85th birthday on New Year's Eve and survived that. And mind you, I didn't stay up for the. Well, I guess I was up for New Year's, probably somewhere around Yugoslavia, if there is no Bulgaria. But no, it's fine, and we're still surviving.
Rafe, taking a look at the BC political picture, we're just a few months away from the next provincial election. How are things shaping up for the Christy Clark government? Well,
I don't think very well, except for they've got one big thing going for them, and that is Horgan hasn't shown his face in any real way. Matter of fact, I'm just, as you called, I'm doing my column for the Common Sense Canadian this week, and it really, it's sort of Tweedledum and Tweedledee. Christy Clark doesn't deserve to win anything. She's been an absolutely appalling government from the beginning, and the little blurb I saw today, not for the first time, she said something in the effect, well, everybody running for election tells little lies, or words like that. That really kind of tells the whole story. I don't think that she has taken the government of British Columbia seriously, and that's probably because she's incapable of doing so. When you think about the standard things by which you judge a government, any government that has bankrupted the BC Hydro, an enormously successful company right around the world, the envy of other energy companies, it is now bankrupt. If it was in the private sector, it would be bankrupt. And then going on to Site C, there's no question. And also put the government some $70 billion worse off in her time, not in Campbell's time, just in her time, is just something that you can't get elected on normally. However, we have John Horgan, who's, and I said this a couple of years ago, he's put himself in a straitjacket. One of the very best issues he could go with, and I think almost everybody on both sides of the fence would agree with this, would be LNG. There are just so many things that you can go with on that, whether it's fracking or transporting it or into the atmosphere, whatever it is, it should be a huge issue. What did Mr. Horgan do? Right at the beginning said, I'm in favor of LNG because we can't be against everything. Well, Jim, here is the rub. You can't be in favor of LNG and then say, oh, I don't think I like the fracking part, or I don't think I like the transportation part. You're in for a penny, in for a pound. So he now is supporting one of the biggest issues that he should be nailing the government on. So as I say, we're faced really with a Tweedledum, Tweedledee kind of thing, and I ask a question in this article, what did poor old BC do to deserve this? It's just, it's sad because it should be an election where a very competent opposition comes along and tosses this bunch out. But we're not seeing that.
For Christy Clark, strategy-wise, what does she have to do to be successful going into the election?
Oh, I think she mainly has to keep her head down and keep provoking what's his name, Horgan to come out and fight. I think that's her best thing now is, come on, let's see your dukes, because she knows that he won't come out and fight on the ground that he's best able to do so. But I think mainly you just keep your head down and do what she's doing. I mean, the one thing that she does extremely well, with a glorious smile on her face, is tell fibs. And I think if she goes on saying that BC's in the greatest of hands, the one she got a little blurb on YouTube where she says, my mother and father made sure they didn't leave me any debt, and so it's just as wrong for a government to leave debt as if she wasn't leaving an enormous pile. That stuff sells. I mean, she's got, I'm not saying Horgan isn't a nice-looking man, but Christy has got a lot going for her in the beauty department and in the smile department, and in the gift of the gab department. Nothing in the brain department, but people don't notice that when they notice the other three things, and that's the best thing she's got going.
John Horgan, if he's going to win, what does he have to do? Oh,
he has to come out fighting pretty darn soon, and he's got some good fighters that alongside him that could be a big help to him. And I'm surprised because my assessment of Horgan is that he is a bright guy and that he is an articulate guy and could sell a story. The problem, if you want my candid advice on this, and nobody will pay any attention, Horgan won't pay any attention. If I were him, I would stand up and say, look, when I was a young leader of this party, I made a mistake. But the party shouldn't suffer for that forever, and nor should the people of British Columbia suffer that. Here's what I did wrong. I said we would support LNG and support it blankly. Well, that was a stupid thing to do. We're not going to do that. We're going to talk about the record of the government of LNG. We're going to talk about the Premier flying all around the world first class, selling it to people that don't want it. We're going to talk about fracking. We're going to talk about the atmosphere. We're going to talk about all these various things. And I think the first 48 hours, of course, he's going to lose face in the papers, I suppose, if they'd say, I mean, they'll be all over him for that. But it soon passes. And I think what Mr. Horgan has to understand is that everybody in the world is caught in that kind of a trap more than once in their life, where they have committed themselves to something that they no longer think is a sensible thing. I think if he did that he'd be off and running. Because LNG, when you think about it, Jim, there are so many areas you can go at there, and people are going to nod their head. Where is this prosperity fund with billions or trillions or whatever it is dollars in it? Where is the debt all being paid off? Where are all the people working in LNG plants, et cetera, and all the exports and so on? They're not there. And he's got a grand probably dozen issues to play with. For example, this is what I think is so foolish, Jim. Our constituency, which is a good constituency, normally is a right-wing constituency, is up in arms over the wood fiber, or the wood fiber LNG proposed plant at Squamish. Now, these people are no longer liberals or conservatives or NDPs or anything. They are whoever is going to stand up and say, no, we're going to stop that. Now, if Horgan would do that, he could run a fence post with hair and get him elected, or her elected. And I know that's an exaggeration, of course, but the people here are ready to put anybody in that'll stand up for their rights and Howe Sound's rights. And he's not doing it. He can't do it because he's in favor of LNG. So these are the kind of things that happen when you make a tactical political mistake. And he did. And the best thing to do when you've done that is to say, "Whoops, I made a mistake. Sorry, here I am." And that's the only choice he really has, I think, if he wants to get elected. And I think it's a good choice. Most people are pretty forgiving of people that ask for forgiveness.
What about the issue of the medical services plan premium? BC is the only province that charges a medical services premium. It's not based on income unless you're collecting welfare. Is that a provincial election issue? And also, what about prescription drugs?
Oh, I think both of those are big issues. Tell me about prescription drugs. I'm a senior citizen, and by plenty of margin. I would rather that the government paid my prescription drugs and let me pay my doctor I'd be a hell of a lot better off that way, including my hospital. Because when you get to my age, you spend a fortune. I spend $6,000 a year on medicines, and I'm just not able to do it, but we do it, and that's a big issue. The MSP payments, I run a risk here of getting some brickbats, but I don't mind. When I was health minister, we had them, and we still got them. Now we shouldn't have them. No other province has them, I don't think. I can't think of who would have them. But this leads, I think, Jim, to the bigger question. When Premier Clark says we have the lowest taxes, or whatever she says, you cannot just have income tax and sales tax and so on as a tax. When people put out of their pocket money that they wouldn't do otherwise if they didn't have to, it doesn't matter whether it's a tax, a prescription fee, a ferry rate, whatever it may be, it is to them a tax. Same thing. When you add all those things up, and if I were the NDP, I would be doing that now and publicizing it, you'll find that we are very, very heavily taxed in British Columbia and far higher than we should. Now, there are some things you obviously have to pay for some things, but when you take a look at all the tolls and so on that we pay in BC and the MSP and so on, it's outrageous, and that's a hell of a good election issue. But Mr. Horgan doesn't seem to be making. He doesn't seem to be making any.
It seems to me the NDP is just content to have the number of seats they have because it's a job and that's it.
Well, you hate to think that, but it almost does look that way. I mean, it's fine when you go out and say we're going to make sure that there are better desks in schools or something like that is going to have sort of a general appeal and be kind of unenforceable. That's fine. All politicians do some of that. But sooner or later, if you want to win an election, you've got to tell people why you are going to be a better government, why you're going to not cost them as much money, why you're going to give them benefits that are going to be cost effective, and why you're going to make policy decisions that are cost effective and so on. And if you can't do that chapter and verse, quite frankly, you don't deserve to be elected.
We'll have more with Rafe Mair right after the break.
I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
In Goddard we trust.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Rafe Mair. Rafe, what was your impression of the Trudeau government cabinet shuffle?
Well, I was sort of thinking about this today and trying to figure out what was good about it. I suppose the news foreign secretary, whose name suddenly slips my mind, is good because Dion he'd had his day as, I think, not only as a cabinet minister, but I think it's time. I know Stefan pretty well. I guess time he went back to Quebec and read his books. But he's a very, very nice, very competent guy, but he's just not the kind of guy that's ever going to like cabinet. As to the rest, it seemed to be very little more than a relatively small shuffle, and I suppose an unkind person would say shuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic. I don't think that it made a hell of a lot of difference one way or the other.
Well, our new foreign affairs minister, Christy Friedland.
Yes.
Right. She's one of 13 Canadians banned from Russia.
Well, that's not a bad start. So, well, she's also, I understand it, an expert in such things as NAFTA and the kind of thing that's going to help. But God, I hate to say this, Jim, because here we go again. Here's cynical old Rafe. It really doesn't matter a great deal. Those ministers will likely do what Trudeau tells them to do. Now, not every premier and prime minister is like that, but so far he has shown a hands-on in everything. He's into everybody's pie. And I don't think it really matters when a prime minister's like that, unless he's resolved now to say, well, I've got enough faith in Ms. Freeland, I'm going to let her run, let her do her thing, and we'll have an accountability at the end of the year. If he's prepared to do that, well, of course, I changed what I said. It's a good move. But there aren't very many of them, if I may say so, like Bill Bennett was, and said, you're the minister, you be a minister, you act like a minister, and if you don't do a good job, you're out. If you do a good job, you're in. And there aren't very many like that. And so it's kind of a media event more than anything else, and it's kind of a kissy picture business with a governor general standing in the background. It's not much more than that, except sometimes it can be, and maybe Miss Freeland will prove what I just said to be wrong. I hope so.
Well, you talk about a hands-on prime minister. Justin does like to hug everybody and anybody, and you contrast that with Stephen Harper, who didn't even hug his own children when he took them to school.
No, that's quite a contrast, all right. And I don't know whether you can make judgments based on that. Although I much prefer the Trudeau method. I'm sort of like the only similarity between me and Mr. Obama is last night he cried, and when I get emotional, I cry too, so I like emotion, and I see a prime minister that's got that. He looks to me like a real person. That aside, however, I think the other thing you have to worry about is how much is he letting his cabinet do their job, and how much are they just dummies on his knee. And we haven't had time to make a full judgment on that, but it does look like Mr. Trudeau likes to be a hands-on, every possible ministry type of prime minister. That's the way he looks to me so far.
And now, of course, we have the elephant who lives next door, a few inches away from us.
Oh my God, yes.
Right. Mr. Trump, president-elect, a loose cannon, or more than that?
Well, I frankly think it's more than that. Now, we don't have much to judge on other than what we've seen superficially. I have never met Mr. Trump, and I don't know whether he's a deep philosopher when you get him in private or not. I certainly suspect not. But I would say, looking at it now, that it's bad news, very bad news, unless there's a remarkable change when he goes into the White House, and that happens sometimes. The White House, as Warren Harding once said, it's an alchemist. It changes people, and he may change. It would take some kind of a change to make it work. I think we just really are treading water and hoping for the best for the next 4 years. It's a very, very scary thing. I don't know how many people watched Mr. Obama's speech last night, and I don't want to get into whether he made mistakes here or didn't make mistakes or whatever, but you saw a man with the bearing of a presidency, a man who was talking to people, and a man, obviously, who cared about the people that he was dealing with, no matter where they came from and so on. Now, you don't have that feeling about Mr. Trump, and that worries me. If he doesn't have the public of the United States as the group of people that he cares about first and foremost, and he's got other agendas and other scores to settle, then it's a very, very big worry.
Rafe, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Always my pleasure, Jim. Take care.
Take care. My guest has been Rafe Mair, Canada's longest-running #1 radio talk show host. You're listening to The Goddard Report on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. If you have any questions for the show, you can email us at info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on The Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.